Good morning, friends, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome again to the track 2 of today's section on Intercity Alliance Reshaping the Future of Work. So, here comes the panel discussion on regional collaboration to advocate the inclusive employment. So, as you know, the workplace has been changing very fast. The global pandemic also, transformed the situation beyond recognition, and both to the workers and also to the employers themselves. Under the new normal, the work locations, the processes, the relationship has been already changed a lot, and also affecting every worker of different industries, professions, different levels, high, mid, low. In particular, the changes also affect the people of different abilities. At the same time, offer great opportunities depending on your perspective. On the other hand, the employers have also gradually moving from their, survival mode 2 years ago, now need to rethink their company purpose and also corporate culture in order to better recruit and also retain and develop the talent. Inclusion and diversity is crucial. And various research has shown that over 80% of the companies are open to hire people of different disabilities, but only half of them know where or how to employ them, and actually less than 10% actually hire them. Even less, they know how to shape or how to develop a dignity job so that to them, and also turn those inclusive employment practices into strengthen the culture. So today we are very happy to have different guest speakers across the region from Australia, Singapore and Hong Kong to share with us their practices and also their views, insights on the challenges and opportunities, especially on regional collaboration. Let me introduce them. First, we have Ary LAUFER. Ary LAUFER, who is the Deputy CEO of WISE Employment in Australia. He leads the strategy and people division there. And unfortunately, he can't join us in person due to an urgent commitment. But he has kindly pre-recorded a video to share the views with us. I will show you in a minute. And online, we also have Mr. TAN Eng Tat. Mr. Tang is the Director of Employment and Employability Division in SG Enable in Singapore. He leads the division in supporting the full disability employment ecosystem, both to get the workers as well as the employers ready to the inclusive employment. And we also have very happy to have Brian CHENG. Brian, let me have a round of applause. So Brian is the CEO of Generation Hong Kong, which is part of a global non-profit founded by McKinsey and company. Generation Hong Kong aims to transform the education to employment system to both the workers and also to bridge the talent gap in Hong Kong. And recently they also extend the cover to cover people of different disabilities. Okay, thank you, Brian. Today we are also very happy to have Mr. KOH Seng Choon. Thank you. Mr. KOH is the Executive Director of Project Dignity, which include both Dignity Kitchen as well as Dignity Mama, okay, which trying to train and place the different enabled people into an employment. Okay, without delay, I would like to share the video by Ary, which he would share with us their experience in Australia, and also they also gradually start their collaboration across the region.
Thank you for inviting me here to talk today. Apologies, I'm unable to attend in person. First of all, I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me, and Lewis from DE Empower, my colleague and partner on our joint WISE Empower project in Hong Kong. WISE Employment is very much about empowering our clients, our community, and as a not-for-profit NGO and social enterprise, making a real difference in people's lives so they can achieve their potential. What makes WISE Employment different? WISE Employment is made up of its people, its services and clients across all states in Australia, the United Kingdom and Hong Kong. This includes government services to 40,000 clients per year in Australia, but also 4 pure commercial social enterprises providing services in 3 states. This sheer weight of numbers ensures large and social impact of this NGO social enterprise movement. In Australia alone, we traded at 160 million Australian dollars this year. WISE commenced 30 years ago as a group of concerned people as people with disabilities came out of institutions and wondered with their families and carers how they would enter into the mainstream employment market. This has expanded in 3 decades with many different cohorts and many different ways. The services are very similar to what you get in terms of services in Hong Kong and the contracts and the works, including government tenders. We work in partnership with a number of ministries and a number of community-based organisations in partnership. The statement slide I really feel is an important slide, and I've included this as these are not taglines. As an NGO and social enterprise, we truly live these every day in the work that we do with our clients and our customers. For a not-for-profit NGO and social enterprise, it is important to work beyond the vision and mission and have simple statements that really reflect these relationships, international relationships, and the impact on the real world of real working people. We, the team, truly stand for these statements. In these photos, you'll see Steve and Jonathan. These are actually disability employment clients. These are real lives we've changed, both visible and invisible disabilities. A lot of WISE's work is with government employment services, and these are the most marginalised in our society, as we know in Hong Kong and other OECD societies, people who need more support, more resources, and empowerment to enter mainstream employment. We help each client individually because they are individuals. This individual tailored support is matched for social enterprises and not-for-profits such as WISE, and they are matched to the correct employer. This is often the critical part of the solution. Our customer focus then ensures the correct match and the proper employment for our customers and clients. WISE has 5 pure social enterprises. These employ people with a disability and some of the most marginalised people into mainstream employment, a critical part of our business. And then these social enterprises compete on the commercial market for commercial opportunities and commercial contracts. These have grown to be over 20 million Australian dollars this year. These WISE social enterprise companies are highly regarded in Australia. In the last 10 years, one of the government TV stations here have made a couple of programs about them. Indeed, in other programs focusing on people with disabilities, some of our social enterprise team members have participated on these TV programs. Increasing exposure of our social enterprise participants on mainstream TV, but their daily work is to commercial standards, open to market competitive forces, and the quality has meant increased growth and business, allowing WISE to employ more people with disabilities in our social enterprises. Important here is the social value WISE employment and our social enterprise have created in the economy and return on investment. For every dollar, it generates $6.50 of social value. Multiply this out, the importance of social enterprises should never be underestimated. And this is something that all social enterprises and not-for-profit should promote, the economic and social value. This investment is critical to showcase your work in numbers that the commercial sector and the wider government sector can understand. And as they say, as the tide rises, all boats rise with it. In this slide, WISE, I'm showing and highlighting, WISE operates a number of new and innovative program and allied services across the whole organisation. We have GradWise, which places university graduates with a disability into work commensurate with their degrees, quite similar to the program that we work with, DE Empower, which is called WISE Empower in Hong Kong. WISE Women, this is for women by women, services that prepare and connect women to the mainstream employment market. WISE Ways to Work, which helps people living with mental illness prepare for work. Interskills, that is a registered training organisation. Our occupational rehabilitation service that helps the most marginalised and people with disability to find their career path. We also work within the National Disability Insurance Scheme here in Australia and provide services within that, as well as a number of state-based employment programs for the most marginalised in the community. We are truly a house of brands, but provide very much an individual service for each and every one of our clients. WISE, through its Promise framework, measures the social and economic impact of its customers, team members, and our community. 3 years to develop and test, this report covers many aspects. It is a critical part of telling the WISE impact story and how the NGO sector and the social enterprise sector can help these groups. An example is seen on the screen here today. You can see how we do measure just one small part of our social impact. Of course, there is a whole report that can be accessed on the web if you'd like to see that online. Finally, time is short and I must go, but as an NGO and social enterprise, our message is much for you as it is for your teams, our teams, and your clients, as well as ours. Believe in your ability. Thanks again to the organisers and Lewis from Empower for inviting me, but also the great work they've done, including the many works that you've done. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ary. Okay, very interesting. One particular thing I pick up from the first slide is that they have a collaboration in Hong Kong. So probably I will try to pick it up again, how they try to increase the impact across the region. Okay, next I would like to invite Mr. Tang from Singapore to talk about their services and how to enable the entire ecosystem for Hong Kong, for Singapore. Mr. Tang?
Thank you, Gilbert. Hi, my name is Eng Tat. I'm the Director of the Employment Division from SG Enable. Today I'll be sharing what we do in Singapore for people with disabilities. So SG Enable is a relatively young government public agency. It's only about 9 years old. So what we do is that we advocate and we also help to bring about different partners in the landscape to work for the betterment of people with disabilities. And who do we serve? Well, there are 4 key groups of disabilities that we serve: the physical disabilities, sensory disabilities, the hearing as well as the visual impairments, intellectual disabilities, as well as people with autism spectrum disorder. So for today's session, I'll focus mainly on the different employment pathways for people with disabilities. In SG Enable, what we do is that we focus on 3 groups: the people with disabilities, the employers, as well as to create a conducive environment through this group of profession that we call job coaches to help people with disabilities to settle in their workplaces. I'll present my findings in a way that you put yourself in the shoes of a person with disabilities. So what we have in Singapore is that there are currently 22 special education schools. So at the age of 18, you'll graduate and from the special education schools, and then based on your disability profile, we'll assign you to a place that we think is suitable for you. For those with high functional needs, we'll send them to 8 shelter workshops in Singapore. So you can see Singapore is a small country. So what we try to do is that try to geographically distribute them as much as possible for people with disabilities to work in these shelter workshops. And what do they do there? You can see from these pictures, they do really a variety of things. They can do art, they can do culinary skills, they can also pick up retail, F&B, and also washing dishes, as well as some of the fine motor skills that are required in processing work. Moving on, slightly above those that can do a bit more, Singapore has this program called the School to Work program that caters to about 50 graduates from special education schools every year. what we do is that we introduce them to how is it like to work in a workplace. So for these students from 15 to 18 years old, they are attached to a diverse group of employers. They could be banks, they could be hotels, and so on, to let them gain work exposure for half a day. And through these interactions with their employees from these workplaces, they also get a better understanding of how is it like to work after they have graduated from their school. So moving on, after they have graduated from the schools, what SG Enable does is that we assess their capabilities as well as their interests. And based on that, we sort of classify them into different groups based on their support needs and provide them with the necessary job support so that they can fit and also eventually work in the places that they've been assigned to. Moving on. So another group of people with disabilities would be those that go on to what we call institutes of higher learning. These are what we have the institutes of technical education, where they pick up technical skills. We also have polytechnics as well as universities. And what SG Enable does is that we have a range of programs to help them to prepare themselves for how is it like to work after graduation from the institutes of higher learning. It can be internships, it can be mentorships. We also have career fairs, career coaching services, and also what we call CV clinics. So we help them to build up their resumes so that when they send out their resumes to prospective employers, they have a higher chance of employment. And in Singapore, we are really heartened to see that more and more employers have signed up to join our mentorship as well as internship programs. As you can see from this slide, we really have a lot of brand name companies like Microsoft, Singtel, GIC, Deutsche Bank, and so on. Okay. How is it like if you're a person with disability in Singapore and you want to work? So what SG Enable does is that we have this range of partners. They can be what we call the social service agencies, social enterprises, and even private agencies. All of them have job placement and job support services. What SG Enable does as the government focal agency is that we help to coordinate all these things. So if you're a person with disabilities, if you like to find employment, you come to SG Enable first. And from there, we do this triage process. We assess your needs, your background, your educational qualifications, your interests, and based on that, we refer you to the proper support agency, whether it's a public agency or whether it's a private agency, and that there will be sufficient job coaches and support services to help you find the job that you like to do. Okay, so I've talked about how is it like for a person with disabilities. Now I'll talk about how SG Enable works with employers. As mentioned just now, over the past decade, we have found that more and more employers are willing to employ people with disabilities. So if you are an interested employer, what we suggest is that you come to SG Enable. We have a team that will work with your HR department, and then we'll sit down, we'll see what roles you have in mind for people with disabilities, what are the skills you require, and then we try to matchmake the people with disabilities in our data bank with your job requirements. This saves a lot of time for the person with disability as well as for the employer. So the services provided by SG Enable are also complimentary. It's free of charge. So a lot of employers would happily approach us, and then based on that, based on our discussion and interactions, we can customize an approach for you to employ people with disabilities. Okay, and also in Singapore, we have this thing called the Enabling Mark. It's a national accreditation that we highlight and also applaud employers who have gone the extra mile or gone further in the inclusive hiring journey to employ people with disabilities. Okay, the last one is something which I want to share with the audience is that what we call job coaches in the disability sector. This is a group of professionals who play a very crucial role because they are the ones who will work with the people with disabilities at the workplace. They will handhold them, they will work with the co-workers, the supervisors, to create their supportive ecosystem. Of course, the job coach is not meant to be there forever, but after maybe a period of 3 months, 6 months, or even a year, the job coaches will slowly wean off, and then allowing the person with disability to work closely with his or her co-workers and supervisors. So Singapore, we place a lot of emphasis in building up this profession called disability job coaches so that they can help to better support people with disabilities. Okay, this is my last slide, which shows the range of programs that SG Enable does to support people with disabilities in Singapore. And then I note that one of my co-panelists is from Singapore as well. I'm sure Mr. Koh can also share how we have worked together to help place people with disabilities in private companies. With that, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tang. very impressive, because I think they have been doing very comprehensive services, not just for job placement, job finding, more or less. I think they are also progressing to career development, supporting the people throughout their career journey. Okay, now I would like to invite Brian to share with us his experience and also insights on Generation Hong Kong, how they are supporting the young people across different abilities.
Sure, thank you, Gilbert. Mr. Ko, if you don't mind. Thank you. So hi everyone, this is Brian CHENG from Generation Hong Kong. Nice meeting you all this morning. So while they are putting my slides up, just very quickly, Generation is a non-profit. We were founded by McKinsey back in 2014. So let me spend my 10 minutes. I'll do a quick intro about what Generation is, but then afterwards we'll talk a little bit about what we are doing for inclusive employment. So very quickly, we were founded by McKinsey as an independent nonprofit back in 2014. What our mission is really to transform the education to employment systems to support people into life-changing careers. So that's our goal, standing between education and employment, not just training them, but placing them. So our mission is to serve needful population in a couple of areas, including low education attainment, displaced workers, rejoining caretakers, and on the bottom right-hand side, which would be the neurodivergent and the special needs population. What we do is we are using a demand-driven, demand-led approach. We want to find a solution that bridges the gap between needful job seekers and employers through an intensive bootcamp model. So for individuals, we help them overcome the barriers. But for employers, we actually secure vacancies for in-demand vacancies, for in-demand job roles, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. There is a 7-step methodology, which I can spend 15 minutes to go through it, but in very, very short, we do it in 3 steps. 1, we talk to employers, we start from employers. 2, we recruit, train, place, and support them. And 3, we measure the return for them. So now globally, we have 40+ professions across 5 different sectors: tech, healthcare, customer service and sales, skilled trades, and green jobs. And we are in 17 countries all over the world right now, supporting 71,000 graduates throughout the past 7-8 years. So for example, in APAC, we are in Hong Kong, China, in Singapore, Thailand, and Australia. And we measure everything from placement rate to retention rate to how many % of employers want to hire graduates. Again, so Hong Kong. We started in Hong Kong back in 2018. And when we first started, we did a research looking into the gap between education and employment. There were 3 things. One is like everyone is going for academic degree. So, but in the job market, not everyone is looking for that. And then the gap between academia and the workplace, and also a little bit of future of work. And from there, this is how we started our journey. The red one would be my focus that I want to talk about today, which is 2 programs that we support youth with special education needs. So when we pick the right job role, that's just now we talk about like we want to get them into some jobs that are probably not something that we are aware of. Not only we are not aware of, but also employers are not aware of. These job roles could be available for the special needs population. So after all, we look at a couple of things. The first one is we look at the macro environment. What is the projected manpower requirement? What is the potential disruption of automation? And then from there, we took a 360 lenses from like what employers need from a demand side, and then what other supply side, which is our young people. What is the value that we're creating for them? What is their barrier, and how we can improve their readiness to get into these jobs. And the last part is the feasibility, whether the job role is actually bootcampable. So I'll put an example. The example that I'm showing you today is called quality assurance tester. So just simply telling you what quality assurance tester is, you might ask what that is. But in simple words, do you regularly update your apps on App Store? Click update, right? So when you click update, in the back end, there are people that develop that app. but there are also people that have to test whether that app is right. Whether you click that button, that shows a function, whether you could input a field, that field is right or wrong. So when we talked to employers back in 2020, we asked them, what is the job role that is like probably like, people are like, very focused in doing, but then you cannot find the right people. So employers are telling us, like, at that time, developers in the company, they like building rockets, but they don't like testing whether the rockets work. So, and that's why, like, they're saying, like, if we can get someone who could be very focused, who don't mind going into details, that might be the person that we are looking for. And actually, that period, we spent 9 months finding this job role. We started with like a developer, and then we started with data. We're thinking like, whether they are good in data, whether they are good in, programming. And in the end, I think that's what we came up with after talking to a lot of employers. So what is a QA? I think like just now I talked a little bit about that. Design test plan, execute test plan, perform UAT, do test reports, etc. And so that's why we were targeting at autistic young people to do this kind of jobs. So a few stories. 2 graduates that I want to highlight. The first one, the gentleman is called Thomas. He was a diploma graduate in civil engineering. He was interested in IT, but had never got a chance to get into the IT field. No background. He graduated from our training back earlier this year. And after that, he's now hired by Cherry Picks, which is a very good company in doing quality assurance tester. And the bottom left-hand corner is called Sam. He was a high school graduate. He studied LCCI. I still remember when he told us that he was in an accounting job, but he didn't get along well with his colleagues, and he wasn't really interested in accounting. And then he took an IT course, and in the end, he was hired by Embrace, initially as a QA tester. But after 6 months, he was actually promoted to be a back-end developer. I was talking to Simon, his boss, on the right-hand side. So Simon was saying, like, when Sam first got in the job, he wasn't very confident in communicating with his colleagues. He had colleagues in Taiwan, but he wasn't really good in Mandarin. So he was thinking like, how I could communicate with my colleagues there. But after a while, there was an emergency. And then like basically Sam exploded and then, just communicated with the Taiwan team. And he was the kind of person that wanted to get things sorted. And Simon even told me like he actually created a button on Google that enabled people to scrape all the data from LinkedIn for back-end support. So anyway, I think on the right-hand side is Simon, which is the CEO of Embrace. What he told us was like the unique strength and character of Sam and other neurodivergent youth are actually putting them in advantage for the position. As long as we are putting a close look to them, have more patience, their talent and capability are very obvious. So this is really the start, but I actually, one quick slide to summarize our 6 key learnings in inclusive employment. Not going to go through all of them. I think later on in discussion, we can talk through a little bit more from there. But I think like how we can get in different experts to work together, how we look at each single young people, where they came from, what their strengths are, and then when we put them into the training, the curriculum and instructional design would be very, very important. We actually put in like a domain expert as an instructor, but we also put in an SCN expert as a co-instructor to make sure they have the right experience, they have the right support. And mentorship, overall team support. And the last part, I think Mr. Tan just now talked about it as well, which is very, very important, supervisor onboarding. This is the very important part that would really help them get into the job. Looking ahead, just a couple of quick points. Looking ahead, I think like this is something that in Hong Kong, we need a little bit more momentum from there. So if we want to continue with that momentum, I think the most important is how we are bringing different partners together, including philanthropies, government, and also our other well-recognized partners as a coalition. So very quick snapshot. To date, we have supported 60 plus young people in the neurodivergent population, but we are scaling up. We are hoping to find more jobs. We are in the progress of finding 1 or 2 more job roles for neurodivergent population, and we are looking forward to working with different partners on that. So this is a quick presentation. Hope that would give you a little bit more insights about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Very interesting operating model. They are, I would say, very McKinsey, because they start from the employers. This is very demand-driven, where the money will come from. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, now we would like to invite Mr. KOH. Mr. KOH, you know, coming from Singapore, but worked quite some time in Hong Kong. So Mr. KOH can also share with us his insights between Hong Kong and Singapore. Mr. KOH?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Seng Choon. I'm from Singapore. I'm coming in both as an employer of people with disability. I'm coming in as a train and place of people with disability. Basically, briefly, I tell you how we all started. It started very small. By the way, this is pure enterprise. It doesn't have charity status behind it. It actually depends on yourself to support. So basically, it started very small. Right, it started with just one store, hawker store, and it just keep growing and growing. So it started in small store, you bring elderly up for lunch, then you engage young people all in one hawker store, a food court, your version, cook food center. Then it keep growing. So you expand to another place where you see a lot of children. If we educate the young of today, the adult of tomorrow will have no problem working with people with disability. Then you see elderly coming in, A, B, C, D. A can walk, B with crutches, C wheelchair, D bedridden. We bring them out. We also train people to start their own business. We've done over 34 hawker stores, cook food center stores in Hong Kong. Then in 2031, we actually expanded again. You must imagine 21, 22 is the worst time in history of the world. So we actually took over a big building. We renovate the whole thing. We conduct classes. I'll explain how we generate money later on. Then we have wheelchair food delivery, where we take a person on wheelchair to do food delivery in Singapore, all within 1 kilometer. This is more remarkable. This girl only had 2 fingers operational, cerebral palsy. And she actually runs a robot from home in Katong all the way to here. By the way, this version already in Hong Kong already. Then we have bookshops, which are created for mother who give birth to disabled. I'll tell you more about it. There are 5 in Singapore, and today is the inspection for the one at Cheng Yi today, now at this very moment. Then in 2019, I think you know what happened in 2019? We came over to Hong Kong. We went through this unrest, we went through everything. For those who have never been to Dignity Chain, come for lunch. You will be impressed, seriously. You will be very impressed with it. These are all done by special needs. There's a mama store here as well, which is a training base for us. Then we have a robot here that's fully operational, which is now operational at 3 or 4 sites outside on my place. And we have also wheelchair delivery in Hong Kong, all within 1 kilometer of Shanghai Kai. So that is what we do. We are the winner of the President Challenge Social Enterprise Award. 2 months ago, I went to collect the World 50 Best Restaurant Champion of Change. This is not like Michelin star. These are the entire chef in the world nominate people who actually deserve it. There are 3 of them. I'm one of them. But I tell you the joke is that this one got 50,000 Singapore dollar. I went for that one because they give it to me at 20,000 pounds and a free ticket to London to collect it. So I did it for the money actually, right? So that's what I did. So how do we did it? Actually very simple. First, to help a person with differently able, you train them. You give them a skill. Cooking is a skill. If you study Maslow hierarchy of needs, what was the bottom? People need to eat, people need to drink. So we train them in that sense. But to train them, you need the curriculum. All the curriculum we see doesn't suit one thing. Actually, it's cook food center. Hawker center is one single skill. If you do your laksa well, you do your wonton mee well, people will buy it. So I took 2 years to develop the whole curriculum. I'll show you how the curriculum works. After that, you give them employment. No point train, and no employment. So we create employment. If we cannot get you placed, we actually create businesses, one after another. Then after that, integrate back to society. Hong Kong Cook Food Center is an integration center. Your food court is integration center. Everybody goes there. So imagine they're all people with disability, serving people who are customers, corporate. And finally, inclusion, to get society to accept them. We create a lot of events. to engage corporate, schools, children, and that's how we did it. Because you've got to give them a purpose. Training them is not the problem. Getting them to stay in a job is a problem. They can't stay long, and our placement is 100% success rate, right? So we are job creator. So how do we do it? Actually, we are not, in Hong Kong, there's singular silo, you know? Ours is not. Ours is compass the whole thing. So from hearing impaired, working with dyslexia, single parents, we combine the whole thing into one platform. Everybody comes to in. I'll tell you more about it later. So we categorize into physical, mental, social, intellectual. Physical as in loss of limb, mental and schizophrenic, bipolar, social, abuse cases. We don't do drug addict, right? I'll tell you why if you want to know. Then intellectual, IQ 70 below, right? We take on different race, 17 years old to 87 years old. Then you may wonder why you take 87 years old. We take on terminal illness. If you want to die in Singapore, 3 months and less, you have to go to hospice. 3 months and less, you don't die. 1 year, you must die. Which means you take them for daycare. This is reality, but this is reality. We all go to the path one day. So they are daycare and home care. So what do we do? We take them to who are going to die at home. Before they got terminal illness, they are chefs, they are cooks, they are everything. So we take them in. The remarkable story is that they didn't die in 1 year. They survived 5 years, 6 years. Think about it. Why? I can tell you the answer later. So we did a lot of this very remarkable project. Our purpose is to return dignity to these people. If they have disability, actually, to be honest, they have dignity, everything can be done. Another thing we did is we got job creator. You can train whatever you like. We can create the job, right? So how do we earn the money? First of all, we sell food. We have a cook food center. We earn money. The minute you go in, we earn money. We also do delivery, right? We organize events. Later, I'll show all the events that we do. And we actually did is we rent out the space. You know that Dignity Kitchen has done 3 weddings. Imagine your wedding is in a hotel. Can you imagine your wedding is in a cook food center? You will never forget your wedding, right? You'll be very surprised. Wedding in the buffet is not by tray. Buffet is by store, one store after another. We are innovators. We are very creative innovators. That's how we catch it, make money. And by the way, people do spend money on weddings, right? Next, education. We train people. Training is one of the 40% of my business come from there, right? And the other 40% comes from the event side. But the money as a social enterprise, we don't keep. We give it away. What do we give away? Whenever we take a training student in, we pay them $37.50 an hour. In Singapore, it's $6 an hour. One child in Singapore cost me $36, and one person we train is $6,000 to $8,000. Nothing comes from the government. It's purely by itself. So what he did is, money is the best motivator. Can you imagine a teacher go to school and tell the student, everybody who asks me one question, I'll give you $100 Hong Kong dollar. I can tell you the whole class, everybody will ask question. Is it correct? Right? Money. That's a reality. But we can do it that none of the NGO can do. We throw money at you. A lot of time we put money, a lot of things in. Elderly trade. Every day in Singapore, we go to nursing home, in Hong Kong as well. We go to nursing home, fetch the elderly for lunch out. Why? Elderly, to be honest, if you go to nursing home, ask the old people what they want to get out. So we bring up city to Yao Chai Hall and then come for lunch free of charge. My people will cook for you, sing for you. This is actually a trick. This is the formula. Imagine I'm a disabled person cooking for people who are elderly. You buy their heart. That's the trick, right? And you motivate them. Later I'll tell you about the UDL standard. Then working capital. Every day in Singapore and Hong Kong, we give out 130 meal boxes to the poor, right? Every single day. COVID-19, we still do it. So I'll tell you, all the money comes from where? The money for buses to fetch your elderly from Hong Kong comes from where? By the way, Hong Kong is actually very expensive for renting a bus. You know, you don't cross the sea is thousands of dollars per day for 2 hours. You don't cross the sea is $800. It's quite expensive. So what we did is we actually create jobs. So individually, I spent how we did it. I know I'm going to take a bit more than 10 minutes. Dignity Kitchen. You have one in Singapore. You've done in Hong Kong, right? And the one in Hong Kong is actually doing, pretty well now, Hong Kong, Singapore as well. They're not small. This is 10,600 square feet. This is 6,900 square feet. Mama Store. Mama Store is one of my favorite projects. It's all started because I saw mother who give birth to disabled children. Everybody focus on the child. Wrong. You focus on the mother. A woman will understand. She's a mother. She's a caregiver. And more importantly, she's the only person who cares for the kids. Father can run away. That's why it's called Dignity Mama. Right. And the idea is to put them together. I can't train the child. These are child I cannot train for various reasons. They are extreme disability. By the way, we went out to lower function one. We dare to take that. Right. So we take them in, put them together, and sell second-hand books. Among all of you here, after today, you should come, Mr. KOH, where can I give you my books? Everybody here got storybooks, novels. So what we do, we take it in, we clean it, we pack it, and we sell it. Right. Now, those books are assessment book. We send to Vietnam. Those management book, Kotler, marketing, version 10, version 9, there's not much difference. So we collect them, we send to Philippine College. Right. So what we did is, it's a recycling operation. In Singapore, we collect used computer, and then we recycle them, give it to the poor. Right. Every month, we recycle thousands of storybooks. Because you guys go to Salvation Army to destroy them. We don't. We recycle them. So in Singapore, there's 5 hospitals employing 34 people. Hong Kong, today actually, Cheng Yi is going to pass his test. Once Cheng Yi passes his test, he'll be the first one outside a hospital. Cheng Yi Hospital today will pass. Mama Store, QE has been around for a year now. Right, mother and child, mother and child. Hong Kong employ over 20. By today, 20 people are employed. Here, 34 people. Right. The next one, dignity event. This is how we engage the public. We get you in, we talk to you. So everyone has a purpose. The one at the bottom is cook, bake, and serve. We get you in, 2 o'clock, we get you big muffins, siu mai. 4 o'clock, you give the poor. You're educating a young. This is the most interesting one. What happened is that we bring kids in Hong Kong and Singapore as well. They don't engage the elderly. They stand in one corner and play handphone. So we decided to put them together and play games. We have a lot of games. Then this is the cheapest. This one doesn't cost you anything. You just come and sing for the elderly, entertain the elderly. You'll be very surprised. All they want is something very simple. They want somebody to talk to. That's all. And this one is, we have a lot of things like that. Okay? So, these are my customer. I'm not the auntie, uncle coming to eat. We actually cater to a lot of CSR programs. We are very successful in that. Right. This is a project I saw just now, a robot running around here. This is a project for homebound paralytic. At this very moment, if you go to Hyatt Satin, there's a robot there. So when you walk in, check in or check out, okay. If you go to MTR station, Tosa one, I can't remember the Chinese name. Anyway, is Sang Wong Toi. That is a robot there, also looking at ambassador. MTR now, I'm coming to negotiate now. They have about 100 MTR stations. We're going to create all the stations with robot. But where's the operator? At Lohas Park, at Macau. They are all at home. They are all controlling a tablet, controlling a robot. These are the homebound paralytic. Imagine how many jobs I can create with just this. So we are doing this now. So that is in Hyatt Hotel. That is the one at Exhibition Hall downstairs last month. We transferred them out. This is what you're looking at. Is very interesting. It's actually a robot walking around Jurong Community Hospital. When you go to a hospital, they'll come in, how are you? You want menu A, you want me. They are nursing assistant. But the most interesting is, when you go and press a hospital, your patient press a button, you expect the nurse to come. Nurse don't come. Patients stand up, fall. Fall precaution is the biggest problem in hospital. So what they do, the nurse, my robot will go there, talk to them. They're all manned by nursing, retired 80-year-old nurses at home cannot come out. Right. I just told Rebecca, I'll put a pet tablet in your place. Your people can start work now and controlling all the thing. It's job creation. You need a bit more imagination to do this, right? Singapore, Hong Kong has a big problem because I know in my queue now, the biggest problem is mental. I got depression, a lot of mental patient case in Singapore especially. So about a year ago, I decided how to help these people. So why don't I do something quite unique? I opened Dignity Kitchenette. So what it does is, we bring them out at 9 o'clock, we send them back at 5 o'clock. So the starting time is 2 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, you know, slowly back up. Now, all 8 or 4 of them has full-time job. Right, because you slowly integrate back to society in a real society environment. In this case, it's located in an industrial building. So there are about 3,000 people there, they entertain them, and that's how I do. Actually, also today, the one on the right, the one on the right actually got a house now. We are actually kitting up the house for her today, this weekend. Now, you see, they go back to life and they have proper job. But you mustn't start straight away. You do 2 hours, 4 hours, slowly build them up. Right. I know. Just 10 more minutes. 5 more minutes. This is the wheelchair in Singapore, Hong Kong. This is, everybody talk about urban farming. Right. We create an urban farm. If you have worked with autistic children, it's very interesting. They are very systematic. 8 o'clock, do something 9 o'clock. They're very systematic. This were actually, because the biggest problem urban farm in Hong Kong now is you got no workers. So these are the workers. Sorry, the one don't work, huh? This is what he's doing in Hong Kong. Every day we go out. These are not the poor people you see. These are the working poor. It all started with the auntie pushing the cardboard boxes. I approached them, I said, I can't give you money, but I promise you one thing, dinner every night. So every night we create hundred people queuing up for free food. Why is different from others that we don't ask you for the ID number. You queue, I give you, no question asked. Right, and that's how we did it. Singapore, this was 130. Okay, rushing off. This is something we also did quite well. We focus on different groups. And one of the groups that we do are people who are going to die, terminal illness. We go to hospice and say, what do you want to eat? We cook for you. Right. It's very successful. The one on the 19th coming up is last Christmas. This is something also quite interesting. When we bring elderly here, not only are we singing for them, entertaining them, we did one thing very good. We make up for them and take a photograph. So what the purpose is that people should die with dignity. But I screw up. This one I really screw up. When I come to Hong Kong, I say, what I do in Cantonese, everybody told me, but if you Google portrait, it's actually 大頭相. It's not wrong. I'm not wrong. But people took it differently. It's 車上相, is it? I got it wrong. I got it wrong. 車頭相, I got it wrong. But now, you're very good. We actually make up for them because I always go to funeral and see people's photographs so ugly. So I decided to do this. And I tell you, they are very happy, especially those homeless ones. So finishing, this is what you all want to see, is the entire curriculum we built for over 2 years. Every single step on how to manage, how to operate, and how to take culinary skill. This is the intellectual property. Now we are building the next level, the food court. So quickly, at the moment, there are 180 people working for me now. By the end of I hope to achieve 200 by the end of this year, of which over 50-60% are all over 50 years old. And over 80% are all people with differently able people. We have a lot of awards. You are looking at the only ISO 22000 food court in the world. Everything you eat in Dignity Kitchen today are food tasted. Right. So we've done 1,000. So very quickly, to work with people as an employer, as a trainer, patient and patient. Don't look at their disability. Everyone is unique. Everyone is not a number. That is what I always tell people, right? Clear and concise. To work with them, you have to be very clearly tell them what you want to do. Be patient. So it's not just working there. That's why people say, why don't you put at McDonald's and all that? They can't, because McDonald's has KPI, very fast. Pizza Hut has very fast. So what we did is, you must need supervision. I cannot place one person. People say, why don't you open another one? Right, I'm going to. The work in stages. Don't give them stage, in stages. And slowly go. Right. Routine, repetitive job. Okay, quickly, money, motivation, quickly treat them as family, and don't shout. One thing I don't do is don't shout at them. They have gone through a lot, and don't try to make it difficult for people. Educate the co-worker. I put this one as the most important. It's not how many companies. Every company wants to do good. The problem is the co-worker. Educate the co-worker. Because the success of any placement is to do it, the co-worker. Our placement is 100% success. We can get you job, definitely, right? And to stay on the job is, sorry, why you go back? Oh, sorry. There I go. Okay, I'm finished already. Oh, sorry, I got some wrong one. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ko. Mr. Ko always speak with a passion. Sorry for pushing, because Hong Kong like Singapore, we have land problem and also have time problem. we don't have sufficient time for all our sharing. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I think we are talking about how we can support the inclusive employment. And I just want to pick up your brain on your insights, how the issues are evolving, the trends are evolving, getting better, more challenges over the past 2 years because of the COVID, and also how your operating model are also evolving in response to those changes. Anyone would like to, or Mr. Tang, still online?
Yeah, maybe I can
like,
just share the Singapore experience. COVID did put a big, when we looked at the data during the COVID period from 2020 to early 2022, was a big dip in our employment for people with disabilities, of course, together with the mainstream group as well. But amazingly for Singapore, we have recovered. Now, a lot, I've spoken to employers and so on, like hotels and so on. They are desperately trying to recruit lots of people. So now actually is a boom time for Singapore, and we're very glad that we have recovered from COVID in terms of employment.
Okay. Brian?
I think like before COVID, we were already talking about future of work, that like in 2030, there will be like 30% of jobs being displaced by technologies. And this is actually like it accelerated a lot after COVID. And even for not only, I mean, it's for all of us here, all of us, or even for the disabilities. So I think the most important is there are jobs that are displaced, but there are jobs that are created at the same time. So for jobs that are created, how we can really map those skills out and see whether like, not only disabilities, but what the strengths of the people that we are serving and how their strengths could be put into the jobs. So a little bit like the tester as well, or, we are also looking into like robots, which Mr. Koh talked about robots. It's also really jobs that are accelerated after COVID, because COVID minimized human contact, human interactions, and that's why robot came up a lot more. But I think like it's not just about building a robot, it's not just about having a robot in use, but also about how you can make sure the robot is working. So I think there are a lot of jobs created from there. I think it's really about whether we have that ability to unpack the jobs and to see what kind of strengths that our young people have and how to match that to the job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Koh?
Our experience of COVID is that anybody who are in business in Hong Kong during the COVID is really struggling. 2 to a table, 4 to a table, lockdown, everything. So if you have a business like a food business, you're actually very tough. So the first thing is that the period is very tough. But the problem with this period is that there are more people out of job. And the first people they retrench or they kick out are the people with disability. The number of people I have now in the queue is nearly 200 people. This COVID generates a lot of unemployment for people with disability. That's why you see that all the ideas come up. Now we are building one after quickly because they are needing job now. So that is the second thing that happened. Thirdly, even now, things are not picking up as fast, not like Singapore, because I'm a good fortune that I've done Singapore, I've done Hong Kong. I can see the difference, right? Singapore has its pro and con, so has Hong Kong. So the demand for what we do now is increasing. That's why COVID, the changes. But one of the third thing that actually come out from this COVID is the mindset. I started this 12 years ago in Singapore. Kids are not like what it is today. Now, young people are more engaging, wanting to do more. That is the remarkable thing. I think that that period of COVID has a positive side. It changed people to be more socially conscious. And that's a good thing that come out of this COVID.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second thing I would like to discuss a little bit more is because today we are trying to explore the possibility or opportunity for regional collaboration. Okay, I said I pick up one thing from WISE Employment. They have a collaboration or joint venture in Hong Kong, and I think I would like to invite Louis from Dialogue in the Dark. I think they have a collaboration between with WISE Employment. Louis, do you like to share your experience with us? How your experience working with them, and also how to encourage more regional collaboration.
Yeah, can I stand here? Yeah, that's
sure,
sure. Yes, about 3 years time before we were with WISE Empower. Actually, we are running a what we call empowerment program before that. And when we met WISE Empower, and if you remember, they got a program called Grad WISE. Also, so in Hong Kong, we call it WISE Empower. So similar concept is like we focus on those disability graduate, which they are good at education, but they want some good job in office. So, but that's not easy because honestly, at that time in Hong Kong, their employment rate is so low. Even they got good education. So the situation is really, before they can have a job, really a lot of like training and prepare them to work. For example, as we know that, for example, if you are ASD graduate, you are so talented in some area, but it's hard for them to go into a workplace immediately without any like internship or training, things like that. So we do that part of the partnership. So when we work with WISE Empowerment, sorry, in Australia, and they're professional in that area. So we exchange our knowledge, training content, and so we jointly run the program, and so we provide coaching and support to the trainees, and also WISE Empower give the advice to us, and so we work together and we make the program better. So more graduates, they come to our place, come to our program, and then they can have better job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I mean, this is very interesting. Okay, Brian, Mr. KOH, so Mr. Tang, any experience on regional collaboration? Any challenges, pros and cons, in order to make sure that we have regional collaboration to scale up your impact?
I guess I got regional expansion. I come to Singapore, I come to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is there's a lot of challenges. For example, the first one is language. In Singapore, we speak English, we teach English. Here, you do it in Cantonese. So I don't have the trainers who can do that. Second thing here, in Singapore, 我们写的是简笔字. Here is 繁笔字, different character. So the translation process is very complicated. Now, I must share you, I don't have social worker working in Project Dignity. They are all Cathay Pacific girls, SQ girls. Why we do that is very simple. But Singapore airline girls are trained to handle hundreds of passengers every day, right? So over here, we replicate the same thing here. You find the Cathay Pacific girls to do it, and we have found them. So the idea is that you need to adapt to the different condition here. Even food, my laksa is different from Singapore. My chicken rice, all different from Singapore. But okay, touch you, it works very well. Right. So you need to adapt, that's all. Okay.
Brian?
So for us, because we are in 17 countries, what we have started here, we actually share with other countries. In Australia, we started with that as well. And I think that's on the operating model. And the other is on the funding level, because we work with a lot of funders like banks. So basically, what we have learned here, we share with the other grantees from the same network, basically how to make sure we find the right job. I mean, basically the support, everyone is working a lot on the support, and to have a little breakthrough really about how to find that job role, because it's a lot of work, a lot of conversation, a lot of pushing on the employer side as well, because employers, a lot of you might think employers know who they want to hire, but in reality, a lot of times employers might not realize. They might be feeling like, okay, this is the JD that I put together, this is the profile that I'm looking for, but in reality, you might have to push them a lot more in order for them to tell you what that is, or what the exact caliber of people that they are looking for. So all these experiences we actually share with our network, with other partners in the community, and even for how we work with different nonprofits in Hong Kong. That experience actually it's mirroring to other countries, how we work with other what we call the TVETs in other countries. So that might be some areas that we want to bring in more momentum in terms of inclusive employment.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Mr. Tang?
Yeah, Gilbert, there are two areas that I think Singapore would like to learn from other countries. One is in the area of job coaches. I think I mentioned the importance of this profession just now. For a population of 5.4 million, Singapore has only slightly more than 300 job coaches for the disabilities. So we're trying to expand this profession, and we like to have this community of practice where we can learn from other countries, Hong Kong, where the similar job coaches can share best practices and so on. That's one. The other area that we thought that Singapore can learn from is in the area of micro jobs, gig jobs and micro jobs. Because I think for Singapore, our traditional definition of employment is still the 9 to 5 type of work. But I think with a growing trend and more people are moving into gig jobs and micro jobs, and there is the demand from people with disabilities as well as their caregivers to go into these type of jobs. This is also one area that Singapore can learn from other regional countries on this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I go further, I would just want the floor. If you have any comment, any question, that you feel free to raise up your hand. So we are going to give you the mic to ask any question. Anyone? Okay. Jonathan.
Hi, this is Jonathan from Dream Pass. I also helped to organize the Hong Kong ADHD Awareness Week. Thank you very much for all of your sharings, but I just would like to share 3 things. So the first thing is about educating co-workers. Because in my experience of raising ADHD awareness in workplace, it seems to be more effective when you try to help the employees to be better parents or caregivers, especially when they have kids or relatives with ADHD. So it's more about just how to equip them it's more than just about how to equip the employees with ADHD work partners. It's more about painting ADHD, the presence of ADHD in every aspect of the employee's life. The second thing is, in my experience, so lots of the people think that, well, because you have disabilities, or perhaps you have a cognitive limitations, that you are more likely to take up blue-collar jobs. If you want to take up managerial or professional jobs, then they may say, well, you have disability, so how can you manage to take up these jobs? And then the last thing is about legal rights. I understand that we may not cover it today, but this is a paradox because let's say if you place someone in a company, then other workers are worried about disability discrimination. So, and then the workers with disabilities, they may not even know about their basic employees' rights. So it seems to me that the legal area of supporting people with disabilities in employment is unfortunately a don't ask, don't tell area. Don't ask, don't discuss area.
Anyone would like to?
I can answer your first question. Trying to educate the co-worker is not that simple. So, like for example, over the last 2 years, 3 years we've been here, like Shangri-La, Marriott, Ritz-Carlton. We tell the chef, all these hotel bosses are very nice. They want to do good. So we tell the chef, why don't you come and teach my special needs? Everybody loves that because they have this thing about helping people, right? So we bring them here and we conduct or teach them, can you teach how to do a spaghetti bolognese and all that? In the course of the training, the special needs demonstrate to them they can actually do what you just tell them. So you change the chef, then you change the sous chef, and they all come. And that's how we did it. It's actually a con job, actually, seriously. It's not you coming to teach us. It's we actually showing you we can do it. And this has been done from Shangri-La, Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, Codis. We actually did that. Second thing we did is that we actually encourage company, when you want to take my people, good, come and see us. Come and do what, just, all those events that you see, we actually do it. Cook, bake, and serve the elderly, everything. You educate them by changing their mindset. That's number one. I can't remember what's the second question.
Probably the last one is about legal rights. How are they aware of their?
No, they don't undermine people's special needs. Don't think they know very well. They know better than you, seriously. So some of them pretend they don't know that they are not. What the Cantonese say, 扮豬食老虎, right? Correct. They are very smart. Don't ever always look at their ability, not disability, right?
Okay, Mr. Tang, any insight from the Singapore perspective?
I think for Singapore, I think rest assured Singaporeans are very aware of their rights. So if they feel aggrieved, they'll definitely go and complain to the government. That's one. But number two is what Mr. KOH has mentioned. I think it's very crucial for co-workers' mindset to change. And I just share some examples where my team, when we engage different employers, I've spoken to employers that has big number of people, like 600. I asked them, how many people with disabilities do you have on your staff? And then the director just says 0. It's very sad. But thankfully, we also have big companies, and you can share one very good example, Amazon. Amazon set up a factory, a warehouse unit in Singapore. And within a few months, they recruited more than 20 people with disabilities. They're very enthusiastic. They invited the job coaches, the caregivers, as well as the people with disabilities to visit the workplace themselves. They say, this is where you work. Are you happy? If you're happy, please apply for these jobs and so on. And many do apply, and Amazon happily worked with them. And I think it's a very good success story that Amazon has done well in Singapore. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Brian?
I think we are addressing something that's not happening over the night. So if we are addressing a long issue, the first thing is we have to understand who we want to crack first. We can't move everyone in one direction, over the night. So I think that's why when Mr. Cole is very right. You have to look at the ability, and then from that part, how that ability actually creates values for businesses. Because you want them to be understanding their strengths, and their strengths are actually creating actual values. Like the cases that I shared, like for Sam, he was promoted to be a backend developer in 6 months, and that actually was his recognition of his ability. And from there, I think it's not about what they could not do. It's about what they could do, and I think that kind of I grew up in Hong Kong. I see a lot of stereotypes, not only for disabilities, but also for all kind of youth. Even for those who get to university, they will compare whether I get to a public university or whether I'm in a private university. If I'm in public university, whether I'm from the top 3 universities or not from the top 3 universities. And if I'm in CUHK, then whether it's a Chung Chi College or Shaw College, right? So there are different stereotypes. But I think the most important thing here is get the right partners to move together and leverage them to move the first step together and to realize what we could do. I think in the Hong Kong community, there are lots of momentums that are willing to help people with different backgrounds. I think the most important is then how to scale up and how to push it to a system level. That is always a question that I think everyone here would be thinking about. But one last thing here is we all can do a part of it. It's not just about Mr. Cole, me, or Mr. Tan. It's about everyone. We can involve in a certain part to help that. Given that you are all interested in this workshop, I'm sure you are interested in this topic as well. There are a lot more that you could do than you thought.
This is Louis. Thank you for joining. At my point. Yes, that's very, very important to educate the co-worker. First of all, from us, especially on office workplace, we pick the company. It's not everyone come to us, we were like, okay, we have some trainees you can work in your office. Because culture does matter. Okay, first of all. So we will do awareness training, awareness workshop for them. Secondly, we will give practical skills for the co-workers. Because our trainees come from different disabilities. So it's different for you to work with a VI or HI or whoever. So we give them practical skills so you can work with him or her like that. So definitely that's important because the whole work experience of the trainees or the POD people with disabilities workers is closely related to the workers and supervisors. So I mean, this is important. I agree on that. Thank you.
Can I just add one point is that having done this for what, 12, 13 years now, you have, first of all, co-worker educated. Every company should appoint a champion. People they can counsel, they can turn to. Is getting job coaches downstairs, watching them for hours, doesn't work one. You need somebody in the company, could be HR, could be admin, to actually, be the champion. Talk to them, engage them. Every day, it's like any other ordinary employee. They all got problem, except for people with special needs, their problem may be a bit more unique. So you need every company that takes on must have a champion, somebody who can actually look and counsel them. That's all.
So I got one question online, which is probably from Hong Kong, because he is trying to ask, in order to promote or advocate inclusive employment in Hong Kong, what is the top priority issue that Hong Kong needs to resolve? Probably Brian can share your view, and also Mr. Ko, because you are coming from Singapore but working a few years in Hong Kong. Any particular insight comparing Hong Kong and Singapore? Maybe Brian?
When we first started, I think we looked at the research did in Hong Kong, and that included it's also about public awareness as well as whether we need a lot of time to really get them up to speed. So I think getting into how to solve that, a top priority definitely is employee education is definitely one of them. And then the other thing is the job roles, what the job roles are available for them, and how to make sure they have so I mean, there are two gaps. One is awareness gap, and the other one is skills gap. So if you want to address the employment, I think the skills gap is something that probably put them through a training would be okay. But then the awareness, for example, the software testing that I talked about, is really new. I mean, before I started the research, I didn't even know there is such a job. And then when you talk to people like social workers, or when you talk to parents, when you tell them there's a quality assurance tester, they're wondering what this job is about. Is it really a job, or I'm actually what am I quality assuring? So I think that kind of awareness gap is also important, because the other thing is oh, so we have this kind of so fancy tech job. Can my young person do that job? So that's the awareness that we're trying to build. So I think if we want to solve for their employment, really about that forward-looking mindset and how the overall support system would look like would be very, very important.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Ko?
Okay, inclusiveness. I had the good fortune of having both countries, and I see the changes over the last two countries. What happened? For inclusiveness, if we start, there changes a lot now. You start at the top. But you're telling those CEO and all that coming, no use. You play games. That's why the event came into a part where we engage these people, and then they pack the box, give it to the working people, working poor. That's how we capture the people. Our purpose is to, first of all, create awareness. Then second thing we need to do is to engage them. Thirdly, to educate them. And fourthly, to inspire them. And it works that way. If you ever come to any of our Dignity Kitchen event, you know why. We got wheelchair to let you sit. We got all kinds of things. Start at the top to make it inclusive. The government is always trying to do things, but a lot of time they have marketing problem. They don't market it well. They don't tell people well. A lot of time, even now in Hong Kong, a lot of special needs doesn't know there's such a thing, right? Dignity Kitchen never advertise. We never put in the newspaper. We never do anything because we don't need to. There are already 100 people in the people that we are helping. So how we do it? We do publicity. So you have RTHK, all these have program like us. So what you try to do is educate through people seeing. But if you notice, all my program is never about the negative of disability to make people cry. It's to show the positive side of how they are able to work and enrich themselves, right? So what we're trying to explain to you is that even when we employ them, we place them, we also have to be cautious on what they do. My problem is not young people coming to work. My problem is parents. You know, why you let my son go to Sai Wun, go and wash dishes. Then what we did is, we don't call them dishwasher. We call them as machine operator because they're actually operating machine, right? Oh, that makes the mother happier. I'm a machine operator. So it's a matter of understanding the job scope, change the job scope, and make it more receptive to the society. You'll be surprised. My problem with Project Unity now is people don't want to leave. They are so good inside there, they don't want to leave. Just to give you an example how good the training is. You don't give employment for them. You've got to create the skill. My laksa boy can make the laksa paste, which is 4 days of preparation. He can cook the noodle, he can serve the customer. People came to see him because they want the recipe. He knows the recipe. First offer 8,000. I told him turn him down. 10,000, turn it down. 12,000, turn it down. 14,000, take. He doesn't want to go. It's not a money issue. It's you create an environment that can learn and train themselves. So basically, you've got to create the inner side of them to give them back their dignity, right? So inclusiveness is, you got to start at the top. Then you got to play games, educate in a different way, right? By creating all the events. And that's how you do it. Come on, you guys go and give meal boxes to the poor in Shanghai Kaya. You understand why. It's not the impact of giving the meal, the impact of smell of poverty. The minute you smell it, you understand what poverty is, right? So that is the impact that we have. And that's how we did it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ko. I think Mr. Ko has raised an interesting perspective that I think we try to change the culture. We need to start from the top. And also probably we need to change from the employer side. Okay, I have one particular question for Mr. Tang and Brian, because I know you are trying to get, support or enable the employers to embrace this kind of, practices and also change the culture. So not just for the employers, not just see this kind of practices as a courses, but as a kind of long-term investment for enabling the cultural change. Any perspective, any insights on this front? Mr. Tang? Or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just want to share from the employer side, like what Mr. Ko has mentioned, usually the top CEOs are very progressive, they're very receptive to this. It's the hiring units, the managers and so on. So what we do in Singapore is that besides talking to the CEO, we say, let us talk to your managers, the ground level, the units and so on. And we have workshops, like 2-hour workshop, half-a-day workshop, where the co-workers, the colleagues, the person with disability we will be working with, to sort of let them know that how is it like to work with person with disabilities. I've attended such workshops myself. Some of the things I thought were common sense were actually not common sense. So I actually learned a lot from these workshops, and I know how to work as a person with persons with disability. That's one. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, besides the mindset of the employers, is the mindset of the caregivers, the parents. I've spoken to many parents, compared to say 20 years ago, where many parents were, to put it bluntly, were hiding their children out of shame at home. They don't want their children to go out to work because they were worried that their children will be bullied and so on. Right now in Singapore, more and more parents say, can you please get my child out? I don't want him to stay at home to watch TV. I want him to go out to work instead. So the mindset in Singapore for parents is also changing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tang.
Very similar to Mr. Tan. I think there are 3 levels in a company that we have to engage. First is the top level, which everyone talked about. The second one is the direct supervisor level. And the third one is actually the HR level. Sometimes HR level, they might have a SOP on this is the part that we are screening people in. And then they would say oh, this person doesn't seem like fitting my SOP of screening people in, so have to do all 3 of them. And then I think the other part is we do a little bit of skills mapping before we admit that employers to be one of our partners, because employers, they usually what they put on paper sometimes might not be 100% on what the actual employee would be working on. So having that kind of skills mapping, getting a chance to talk to the supervisor, understanding them, and telling them what our graduates will be able to do, what our graduates will be able to fill in, or basically showing them what we're training them for would be important. And I think the last part is really about because every single young person stay with us for 8 weeks of training. So that 8 weeks, basically we position that as it's not a training, it's really about a job, getting you ready. We came across situation where young people during that training period, they have some behavior that we have to support them to go through. For example, we were at a site doing the training, and they were taking some taking some food from the fridge of the co-working space, because like that place was like everyone is sharing that part. So we have to tell them this is something that you need to work on before you get onto the job. This is some behavioral trends that we have to help fix, and those behavioral trends, we also observe what their strengths are, and then when we do the placement, we'll tell the employers like these are actually the strengths, and these are the areas this person might need additional support. We're not saying that our young person is not good or blah blah blah, but more about like what the additional support is and how we actually supported him or supported her throughout that training, so they would have a better understanding on like what we have gone through, and then when we placed that young person to the job, they would have a better understanding of the overall picture as well.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I just want, okay, so somebody. Thank you.
I'm Sophia, and I work in matching jobs to young people who don't know what they want to do. And I think it's adding on to what Brian said. What is the thought process you usually take when you decide who to place into which jobs? Because you, like in both Dignity Kitchen and Generation Hong Kong, you guys have a lot of people from multiple backgrounds, and you place them into different job positions. And what's the process you take when you decide who to put where? Thank you.
I can go quickly, and I'll let Mr. Ko add on. So I think the most important is deep in their heart what the passion is. When you look at, it's also about matching the job and the young person's passion and interest. I'll share example, which is not an inclusive employment story, but hopefully that story will give you a little bit of insight. 4.5 years ago, when we first started in Hong Kong, there was a young person coming in and say like, oh, I want to be I want to be a front desk person in a hotel. So we took her in. She's like very good in communicating with others. But throughout the training, we realized when 3 people came to her at that time, she was freaking out. And then we were asking, why do you want to get to a hotel job? And in the end, she told us because she wants to be working on a pastry in the hotel. She wants to get in the hotel first and then get into a pastry job type of role. And then we immediately asked her, why don't you get into the pastry role immediately rather than getting that? So I think a lot of times they might have a perception on like, oh, this is something that's suitable for me, but deep inside they might have other things that we have to consider. And the other part that we see is like a lot of times because of the way that they were brought up, partly because of the education system, but partly because of the environment that they were brought up. Young people in general, they don't know how to articulate their personal story. They don't know how to share like, well, what my strengths are. They would feel like this is something that I could not do. For example, we put them into mock interviews with external people, and then they were the first question that they asked is like, can I speak in Cantonese instead of English? Because they're feeling like I'm not comfortable. This is my weakness. So I think like how we shift from how we shift the mindset to be more strength-based, to be more, my interest-driven, and from there we can take out a lot more about their personal story that we can put them into a right career. So I think that matching process involves a lot from the young person themselves, how we empower them to own their career, and then from there how we can really match the right career for them. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, we have a process that why we can have 100% placement is because the interview process is very tough. Right, there are 3 aspects we look for. When you come in, we look for social, articulate, mobility. Social, you can talk, can communicate. Articulate, can do what you want to do, and mobility. Then there's a 2-stage interview. First, your mother and you, or caregiver and you, we are looking for caregiver support because we are not professional. So the caregiver there, who to talk to, we can engage them. Then we ask the caregiver to go away. The second part is actually filling the form, everything. We look for independence, able to talk, able to engage, everything. At that very moment, we know what we want already. We can take you and we can don't take you. It depends on them. Don't forget, once I take, I got to pay you, what, $37.50? Every child is $220,000 to $30,000. I can't make mistakes like that. So my trainers are very professional. You either take or you don't take. Take, you must be able to place them. And that's the criteria. So that's why we have 100% placement all the time, because we are able to do it. So the top, you must remember we are ISO 22000. Everything is documented and procedurized. So that's how we achieve those standards. And that's how we achieve 100% success every time. Dropout rate, about 20 to 30, about 100, 20 to 30 people will drop out. Either they go or we ask them to go. Because there are people who actually, very simple, people bipolar, they come and see us, Mr. KOH, I want a job and everything, we can train you, and they are paid. You can bullshit us in terms of the doctor's letter. You can't bluff us on the medication. So what we do is, once I got those information, I go and we are surrounded, we are not professional, we are not doctors. We are surrounded by a lot of medical staff. We pass the doctor, cannot, don't take. In a way, if we can really help you, we will help you. If not, we don't touch. Because I make a lot of mistakes since I started. I screw up big time. So that taught me how to be more careful. It's not a game anymore. It's helping a fellow human being. So I cannot make mistakes. Right.
Thank you. Okay, so because closing of the section, I would like each of the speaker to tell us your biggest opportunity that you encounter, especially going forward in the next few years, how to promote the inclusive employment in Hong Kong, in Singapore, or in the region. Try to be more hopeful, stay hopeful and optimistic. Mr. Tang?
Okay, I brought a spoon to show you why I see you guys sitting here listening to all these things.
Mr. Tang? Oh, sorry, you go first.
Yeah, Mr. KOH, please go first. Mr. KOH, please.
So basically, you all listen to our story, listen to those things. I think in your heart you want to do something so good. And to make it more inclusive, wash yourself good. Can you hear me without the thing?
Because online,
because I need to do this with a spoon. So what I'm encouraging you, a little story about a boy who came to see us. You see, he suffered from cerebral palsy. He suffered from cerebral palsy. So when he walks like that. And he swing. So he said, Thursday he came. I want to learn. I want to train. So I said, Ken, hold the spoon. You hold the spoon, I will train you. He hold the spoon and he drop it. Right. Hold the spoon. He dropped it. Because his hands is like that, So cannot help him. Friday he came back again. So this time we went to buy masking tape. Put a lot of masking tape to catch it. But the problem with masking tape is very sticky. So how do you do a cook when a sticky thing like that? So we said, you go back. Saturday he came back. This time we really did, because he went home and people whacked him. Right? Why can't he get a job? So this time we did something quite unique. I don't know whether I can do this. Ooh. The reason why you're sitting here listening to our stories is to try to inspire you to be more inclusive. Every problem has a solution. Understand? So whatever is in your heart now, say, I cannot do all that. Every problem we face, there has to be a solution. Okay?
Thank you.
Brian? I think for me, very simple message. You could all do a part in this. When we first engaged external volunteers to do it, they were a little bit hesitated and they're wondering how they could help. And in the end, I think what they told us was actually way more. Just take the recent class of graduation, the instructor. He used to be in the business world for many years. After teaching for 8 weeks, the last comment that he had was like, he thanked us for giving him a chance to work with the neurodivergent population. One sentence that he quoted in the very last of it is like, everyone has a different colors, and he saw very, very different diversified color within a same group of people. He even showed us like how much the class had done, every single young person has done. They put together an SOP on how to be a quality assurance tester and all the support, all the materials. And we also have volunteers from the business side to come and help them on mock interviews, how to sharpen up their personal story. It's really a very, very small, like 1 or 2 hours of work, but you are actually contributing to their lives, and they are actually benefiting from your experience. So talk about inclusive employment is not my thing, it's not your thing, it's everyone's thing, and I'm sure you could all do a part of it.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Tang?
Yeah, I'll share a very brief story. 2 weeks ago, I was having a panel discussion with university students with special needs. One question posed to me by a student was, do I put my special needs in my resume that I'm a person with disabilities? I told him that yes, please do so, because now the tide is changing in Singapore, mindset is changing, and that even if you put your special needs in your resume, the employers are not going to rule you out, or not going to, they won't say that I won't interview you. In fact, I've seen many employers saying that they prefer that people put their special needs in their resume because they'll make the accommodations during the interview, and also when they shortlist you or when they hire you, the necessary accommodations as well. So I'm just glad that things are changing. Of course, there's still room for improvement, but I think that's something that we can always change our mindset. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's conclude this section. So may I have all your applause, a round of applause to the speakers, Mr. Tang, Mr. KOH, Brian. Okay, so I think inclusive employment is not just an internal CSR. I think this is something for the better development of the company. Okay, so here comes the interactive section. And may I invite Andre? We are going to show you an interesting robot. There's something exciting coming up. So this is a bonus for today. Probably they need our encouragement. May I have the clap for them? Ooh. Guess who is coming? Andre? This is on Andre. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Andre. Thank you so much. Thank you. Should I speak in Cantonese or? Oh, we have foreign guests, so I better put it in English. All right. So thank you, Gilbert, for hosting amazing sessions. I hope you all enjoy so far. I'm Andre. I'm the organizing committee of the Social Enterprise Summit as well. I'm also the fellow of the Work Network Forum here. We have a very interesting interactive session today, half an hour, very short, but very eye-catching, I would say. So Hong Kong, when people say there's no innovation, there's no technologies in Hong Kong, but I think we have some exceptions here today. We have, first of all, the Golden Age Foundations. The Dr. Golden is one of the use case of sort of robotics. I think the innovation starts sort of at the very beginning of this year when we have the 5th wave of COVID. There are huge outbreak and also issues in the elderly caring centers. That's where the robotics comes in. And then we have also Sen from R2C2. I think he's getting ready. He's coming in soon. He is a returnee from the US, a Hong Kong very bright talent, tech entrepreneur. If ever everyone interested in robotics and application, this is today's session. We have use case in elderly caring industries, and Sen is responsible for the back end. So if ever wonder how does robotics really work and interact with the environment, it's not just about the body, it's more about also the chips, how to program the chips in a way that the robots can interact with the environment, right? So Sen is the guy at the back end designing the chips, programming for the robots to interact with the environment. So while Sen is getting ready to send his robo-dog coming in, I would first pass the time to Ms. Low from Golden Age Foundation to give a brief intro of the environment use case first about Dr. Golden. So Ms. Low.
Thank you. May I speak in Cantonese? If you don't understand, maybe ask me later on. Okay, thank you. 早晨啊，各位嚇，咁Golden Age Foundation 盧姑娘或者叫我 Marietta 啦。咁其實今日我哋講呢個機械人咧，你會見到佢個身形好 slim 係嘛？其實正話好似我司儀啦 Andrew 講，就係其實年初嗰段時間第5波疫情嗰段時間，其實大家都歷歷在目啊！好多老人家喺院舍嘅職員嘅中晒招， 入咗醫院嘅入醫院，去咗隔離房係咪先？跟住剩翻嘅同事係相當之少。咁少嘅同事點樣照顧到老人家？當其時我哋見得到就死啦，剩翻啲同事點樣繼續照顧到老人家啦？佢又疲於奔命，又要消毒啦，又要抹地方啦，又要照顧老人家三餐啊、餵食啊各樣嘢咁樣樣。咁當其時 Golden Age Foundation 就揾到啲 founder 就好好，咁就俾我哋咧係推行咗一個叫做逆風同行呢個 project， 俾我哋咧係進入咗34間嘅院舍、私營安老院，我哋提供咗呢個機械人。幫佢啲咩咧？我哋係諗緊就，我好想就係話，既然咁少個同事，我希望啲同事寧願用多啲時間係真正去照顧老人家，俾 direct service 佢哋。其他啲工作一啲唔需要一定係要人手工作，可唔可以用機器或者係科技代替咗咧？咁當其時我哋就揾咗呢間公司啦嚇，咁佢哋咧就會提供咗呢個嘅 Dr. Timmy 俾Dr. Golden 俾我哋。咁其實佢有啲乜 function 咧？我就係講咗 infection control 好緊要，但係你叫啲同事每1個鐘頭、2個鐘頭抹間院舍、抹扶手、抹台，嘥好多時間。咁其實呢啲時間我慳翻咪照顧到老人家咯。咁呢個機械人咧就會行勻全院，每個角落喺度噴灑消毒液。嗱，呢啲消毒液每8個鐘頭咧就可以消毒成間院舍㗎啦。咁但係行可能行半個鐘頭已經 OK 咗。咁啲同事，我每次用成個幾2個鐘頭嚟抹嘢，我慳咗個幾2個鐘頭，我咪可以照顧到老人家咯，係咪？好啦，另外一樣嘢就係、你知啦，啲姑娘量血壓、探熱，每日都要做，因為啲老人家驚佢發燒，冇人知。如果係咁嘅話，啲姑娘120個老人家，我每次探120個老人家，每人1分鐘去到120分鐘，你諗下嗰啲都係時間。咁所以我哋呢部機械人咧，亦都可以駁咗落一啲嘅vital sign嗰度，直接將所有嘅 reading 咧升上個 cloud 雲端，就駁咗落去個系統嗰度，就免卻咗啲姑娘咧不斷咁抄寫，同你量完寫低一次，跟住翻 nurse station 又要再重新寫翻落去個 personal file。咁其實嗰啲時間都係時間嚟㗎嘛。咁但係佢可以即時可以同步將所有嘅 data 入翻個系統嗰度，咁亦都係慳到個老人家，慳咗啲同事嘅時間，亦將呢啲時間係真正愛嚟用喺照顧老人家嗰度嚇。咁除此之外嘅話，其實 lockdown 嗰段時間，老人家好差，佢好掛住屋企人，屋企人都好掛住到老人家，但係冇得探訪。咁所以我哋亦都通過咗呢個 Dr. Golden 咧，有啲嘅 video call 啦，可以即時打電話同屋企人傾偈見面。屋企人都見到老人家啊，仲好健康喎，呢個係咪好安心啊？老人家見到個孫仔係咪都好開心啊？減卻咗佢一啲 depression 啦，或者甚至無可以有個 risk of dementia， 驚佢哋會嗰個痴呆嗰樣嘢更加嚴重。咁呢段時間佢可以即時見到孫仔好開心啊！孫仔我冇錢使，你快啲過10萬蚊俾我使啦，係咪先呢一樣嘢？咪好開心啊！咁除此之外嘅話，其實咧亦都可以另外一樣嘢叫做係遠程嘅視像診症。因為呢部機亦都係我醫生嗰段時間亦都冇辦法入到院舍去睇 case， 咁就唯有我哋經過呢部機械人咁就喺院舍嘅老人家個姑娘可以同個醫生喺度做一個遙距診症，可以即時睇翻個老人家身體狀況差咗，係咪需要即刻入醫院啊？需唔需要開啲藥物俾佢哋啊？咁樣。咁所以咧，我哋當其時就揀咗呢個 Dr. Golden 咧，入咗34間院舍，提供咗呢一紮嘅服務咁樣，係啦。
Thank you, Ms. Low, and also thank you, the team, for demonstrating, introducing a little bit. I think Sen is ready. Can you help check? Yes. So we will. Okay, so we're gonna have another. I mean, while we have the use case in Hong Kong, and I mean, in this half an hour we talk about robotics, the sectors. We definitely. So we also like to talk about aligning with the main theme about the future of work, like how this industry can continue to thrive in Hong Kong. So I think Stan is still putting pieces of the RoboDoc together. It takes a few minutes more. Maybe I pass a question first. I mean, all the guests, actually you can sit a little bit in the front. It will be easier for you guys to see the doc as well when the doc comes in. So like everyone feel free to, actually if you like to stand up and have a clear picture later on, feel free. Before the doc is getting ready, maybe I raise a question to Ms. Low. when you introduce these Dr. Golden to the elderly caring centers, do you see the manpower? I mean, at the end, you probably need to train someone to manage, to like read the data and also to help the design of the robots, right? So how do you see that? Do you see the challenge? Do you see the talent as a challenge, or actually not so difficult?
就其實都因為當其時我哋introduce 呢個 Dr. Golden 入去院舍嗰時，其實我哋都遇到好多個 challenge 嘅，因為前線嘅同事咧對機械人啊或者係電腦科技啲嘢係好驚，係驚咩咧？驚整壞佢啦，第一啦，驚篤下唔知啲嘢去咗邊度啦 ，confidentiality 唔見晒啲 data 啦呢一樣嘢。咁所以嗰段時間我哋成條 team 啦，同埋我哋嘅IT 公司咧啲同事都好好啊，我哋真係咧手把手拖住手仔，逐個 step 教佢點樣用。當佢哋有問題時，即刻 call 我哋，通知我哋護士啦。我自己本身都係護士嘅 ，call 我哋啦，或者係 IT 公司嘅同事咧，即刻嚟同佢 solve 嘅 problem 呢一樣嘢。咁當然嘅，中間過程係痛苦嘅，因為佢哋真係好多好細節嘅嘢，你講一句説話嘅啫，佢就冇 related to 呢一樣嘢，佢哋真係搞唔掂啊！個阿 Dr. Golden 瞓着咗，又唔曉行啊，威通西又唔知量啲嘢，唔知去咗邊一度啊！呢一樣嘢係好多問題嘅。咁雖我哋成個 project last 咗半年啦，咁到最後咧都好開心，好多前線嘅同事覺得佢好好，因為慳咗佢都得時間，唔使再周圍去抹嘢。啲護士都係慳咗好多時間，唔使將量完啲血壓啊各樣嘢抄完之後再抄。而家調翻轉頭咧，佢哋好慣常用啦，慣常用咗呢一樣嘢，佢哋覺得計劃完咗咯喎，會有冇得繼續啊呢一樣？所以嚟緊咧，我哋有個叫逆風同行嘅2.0呢個 version， 希望將個 IT 呢樣嘢係再深化，再可以用得更加好啲，幫啲院舍可以 upgrade 佢哋嘅 service standard 呢一樣嘢嚇。咁期望我都希望真係 IT 呢樣嘢係幫到啲院舍啦，無論係私人安老院好或者 NGO 好，真係多啲係用呢啲科技嘅嘢。因為過往我就知道咧，院舍鬥呢科技係比較係慢同埋少嘅，因為佢哋好多擔憂嘅嘢咁。咁希望期望嚟緊嘅話，真係可以幫佢哋多啲介紹一啲嘅科技產品俾佢哋，係用着喺院舍裏邊，幫佢哋嗰個服務質素係提高呢一樣嘢。
Okay, thanks, Ms. Low. I think the doc is ready, so let's have Stan, R2C2 and the doc coming in. We can hear it. I think the guests can also sit a little bit up front to see the doc. It's a little bit short, so feel free to stand up, crowd around, and I think Stan can also come in and introduce the company and the technologies. All right, so welcome Stan, and he's the founder of R2C2, a robot AI chips design and very amazing returnee to Hong Kong for putting this company in Hong Kong. And I think this is pretty much, I mean, we have the use case for elderly caring center, and we have, I think, as you introduced when I was asking, that the black box is what he's designing. Maybe I will give you a bit more time to introduce what your company does, why you're doing this in Hong Kong.
So thank you for coming today. So this is Stan from R2C2. Well, I have been doing robotic research for quite a time. So my background is actually in the electrical engineering part, and we have been doing research in logistic robot. And we're kind of realizing there are lots of repetitive work, even for robotic scientists. Like we have to keep, enabling a robot and doing like operations or stuff like that. And when you actually try to build a solution, most of the time, 1/3 or maybe 1 to half of the time, you actually go to the robot enabling rather than building the solutions for the ultimate goal, right? So what we have done here is kind of like a robotic platform, or maybe like a robotic operation system. We actually built the whole thing based on ROS 1 and 2. So the idea of the box here is actually to give the robot more functions. It could be navigation features, other inspections or sensing capabilities. Okay, it works. So yeah, so like for example, for this one, this is Unitree Go 1. We do not build the hardware, the robot itself, but instead we build the whole controlling system for the robot. We can use different kind of sensors, like nano sensors, to collect different kind of image, video, sensors. I mean, smells and air quality, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the whole idea. We got an app to actually control robot. It could be unitary. We were known for building something like that for Boston Dynamics, and we have also been start doing that with the indoor robot and service robot, cleansing, disinfections robot, everything like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. So maybe I also raise two short questions. One is, what is the particular unique scenarios you are doing this with the robot dog in Hong Kong? I mean, which scenario would be the most popular, most valuable to use it in Hong Kong? The second is, as your company keep growing in Hong Kong, what kind of talents, or what kind of talents and what kind of qualities of talent do you foresee? I think besides the hard skills like programming, engineering, I think the Hong Kong government talks a lot about STEM education. But what else quality do you think, when you're hiring, you believe or you hope that young people can gear as well, so that the robotics is not just staying inside the engineering sector, but also in larger sector?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of legged robot, the main use case that we have been building is for outdoor inspections. So it could be slope, tunnel, infrastructure inspections, railway, transportation system, that kind of thing, right? But the ultimate goal why we are building this kind of system as like a unified robot control and management systems are to solve a problem, kind of like a robot Mexican standoff. So what does that mean? So Mexican standoffs just mean like people sitting here and they're like pointing guns at each other, they're not backing up, right? So what happens is, for different brand of robot, that actually happens. Like if you go to shopping mall and stuff like that, if they're using two different brands of robot, they kind of treat other as, obstacles, right? So they're not going to back up. And what happened in the interjunction is they just stand there and do nothing. Or maybe start rotating, right? So this is the problem what we're solving, like especially when different organization, they're deploying different kind of robot, different brand of the robot, and you don't want that to happen, right? You don't want to have a whole team of robotic engineers just to solve that kind of problem. So we solve it for you guys. So that is what we're doing in the use case of the whole system. And in terms of hiring or what we're expecting from the society, as a startup, almost as a stand-up, but as a startup, we actually need people with more startup mindset, which means like they have to be passionate of what they're building, but it all goes back to the education, like you said. It's not just about the hard skills, like why they're learning programming, but at the same time, programming is cool, but at the same time, they need to have a mindset of like, oh, I'm actually making an impact to the society, right? So that matters. Not only, but to make a living, that's important because you have to stay alive, just like a startup. But at the same time, you have to make an impact. And where would you like to spend your energy in? That should be something that you're passionate about, you're enthusiastic about. So yeah, looking for people definitely enthusiastic about robotics and how we can make an impact through robot to human society.
Thank you, Sam. So I think some guests, audience may have questions. If you have questions, feel free to raise hand to Sam and also to Ms. Low. I think I would also like to draw Ms. Low and Dr. Golden back to stage. We have one question. And the question is, I think both are very much in the value chain, right? I mean, you guys are doing the use case scenario, while Sense Robots is very, I would say, advanced to me. And also like keep evolving. I mean, as the robots keeping more evolving, how do you see this kind of relatively advanced technologies can be implemented in relatively traditional industries like elderly caring? Do you think the modern time like now would need more advanced technologies, or they need to be more modified in a sense, socially friendly, so that even elderly or even relatively traditional industry can adapt to these kind of technologies?
Richard? 其實我好似我淨係講咧，咁我覺得 IT 呢一樣嘢咧，其實都係真真正正係需要咧，係點樣去引入咗去院舍入邊嘅。咁我正話亦都講過，無論係資助安老院好或者私營安老院好啦，而家使用 IT 嘅情況咧，真係唔係好普遍。對佢嚟講都係好大嘅 hesitation 呢樣嘢。我覺得係需要時間讓佢哋認識 IT 係點樣去幫到佢哋工作上邊嘅一啲不足嘅地方咁樣嚇。咁過往呢段時間，我哋正話講過逆風同行，亦都係啦。前線同事，無論係個院長又好，護士都好，甚至乎前線嘅同事咧，係好擔心去鬥呢啲嘅機械人或者係 IT 嘅嘢。 咁嚟緊，我希望政府成日講點樣去將個科技呢一樣嘢引入去私營安老院或係資助安老院。我希望真係做多少少嘅嘢。首先一樣嘢係令到佢哋前線嘅同事覺得呢一樣嘢真係對佢哋係有幫助嘅。唔淨止係話俾佢知道啦。我諗資助嗰方面亦都需要而家都話有啲嘅落力嘅科技基金俾佢哋。咁但係佢哋都唔識得點樣去 search 呢啲嘢，邊啲 product 對佢嚟講係有用嘅。咁我諗在座或者係有啲 IT 公司嘅人，可能佢哋唔知點樣去入院舍或者係入啲elderly service 嘅去介紹產品嘅話，咁其實我諗每年嗰個 expo 啦老人嘅 expo 嗰度，咁我都希望係真係可以介紹多少少嘅產品俾佢哋，讓佢哋認識得到你哋係究竟係點樣去幫佢哋現時嘅工作上邊係點去方便到佢哋，係幫得到佢哋係人手嗰方面，因為大家知道係人手真係好困難，佢哋真係唔足夠人手。但係有啲咩工作可以係幫得到佢哋係減省咗呢？譬如我之前去過一間 IT 公司啦，甚至乎而家抹地拖地甚至乎抌垃圾全部都用 IT 用科技嚟去處理咗。咁呢啲亦都係嘅喎，慳咗好多嘅時間。咁佢哋係咪可以真正要做一啲嘅 direct care to 嗰個 client 呢一樣嘢咯？咁樣。
Right, so I think if we have any government friends here, you'll hear it. We need more, not just money, but also more policy facilitations, right? So I think addressing what Ms. Low mentioned about the adaptations, what do you think the role of tech companies? I think the user adaptations, the user experience is always the biggest challenge somehow. So what would you think about, another part of the paradigm, like how do you think robotics company role in social innovation, in especially some key challenges in Hong Kong, like elderly caring and even others?
All right, so I come with, I'm going to go into that question with a couple of aspects. The first one is as an engineer. So engineers usually over-engineer, or we kind of just keep that to ourselves. We do not really open up to how should we teach the user or how we should think from a user perspective, how we should design a product. And we do have that problem too, even in our company. So we have to keep dragging them as a user. So we got a UI UX designer. Which means like for the robotic company, you have to get a really diverse background of people trying to understand the problem statement, right? So everything should be goal-driven, which means like you need to solve a particular problem, and that's why you're doing so, right? So that's from a company perspective. But also for the industries, for healthcare or maybe the government, the openness of adopting new technology, that would be really encouraging to close how the robotic company can work with the government sector or public sectors, because robot is not easy. And turns out, even for Boston Dynamics, there is still a lot of failure. I mean, we deployed a couple of the Bostons, and yeah, there are cases that are really screwed up, but we have to fix it. I mean, we got the technical capability, we can get it done. But it just means for the public sector, there's no like, oh, I install or I purchase this piece of hardware and it's already good to go. I mean, that's never the case. There is a learning curve. There's an adaptation period to get it done. So that is something that might be the public sector has to adjust and understand that there's no ready-to-use solution on the market, and everything can take some time to get it ready and production ready. So we have been building this to make it usable for people with no technological background, and hopefully they get it work one day.
Thank you, Sen. So we have 3 minutes left, so I would love to really take any questions on the floor. Probably I would like to pick some brains as well here, some friends I know. But before that, do you guys have any questions? Interesting, any queries or any questions you want to throw to Sen, engineer, entrepreneur, or you want to throw to Ms. Low, social entrepreneur, and in the elderly caring sector, who are pioneering technologies. If any questions, feel free to raise hand.
All right, so there's no one single robot that can do all the job. Liquid robots such as the robotic dog may not be the best one actually in the healthcare industry, to be honest, right? Unless there are stairs that you want a robot to actually walking up the stairs. I mean, robots are really good for walking upstairs. and that's it. So for now, this solution that you see in front of you might not be the best fit for the healthcare for sure. But then the main core is about what we built on top of that, and that can actually get transferred to other robot. Could be TAMI, it could be other cleansing or disinfection robot. So what we're providing to the healthcare system is actually a unified robotic control system, kind of like a fleet management. You can always see where's the robot are, what they're doing, what's the emission rate right now, what they're carrying inside. And if you add more sensors, you can actually start checking if the people staying there or the people being cared is actually in good conditions or not. So those are the features that we can add to the robot, but not limited to a robotic dog.
Any other questions? No, maybe I will pick one response before we finish this session. So I would love to pick Brian from Generation and also Kairos. Just any quick response if you any have ever, yeah. Quickly to go first.
So I think that technology is definitely playing a significant part for elderly. So I'm really glad to see like more products coming in, and thank you so much for sharing this. It's really important, like, because, you know, I didn't really talk about this just now because we're talking about inclusive employment, but the other parts of the work, that Generation is doing is on elder care as well. Because we want to bring in people with like compassionate mindset to go into the elder care industry, because elderly's lives should be living with dignity rather than like, you know, we shape everything for them. So having all these technologies are actually a good companionship. So really good to see all the technologies coming in. We were in Geron Tech and we were impressed by all these technologies, and you know, seeing all this, especially Golden Age Foundation. I know Rebecca for years, and I know Rebecca is doing a lot for the young olds as well. So really appreciate that, and would love to have more of that momentum going on in the community. So thank you so much.
Thanks, and absolutely, hopefully, sorry, yeah, let's clap the hand. Thank you, Brian. Hopefully the Generation can lubricating the sectors, you know, between the tradition and the advance. So yeah, Kairos.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, so just a quick response. So I love these ideas because nowadays in Hong Kong we are lacking manpower in especially in healthcare services. So that's why we had a lot of discussion on whether we should to have more external labor to come Hong Kong like that. So these kind of technology can help the industry a lot. Because I also sitting in the Elderly Commission, we always talk about like the manpower issue, and also how to help the industry to adopt more like this kind of technology. But we also need to think about how to use these technologies in at home, because a lot of carer, they don't have these kind of ideas. They still using the most traditional way to take care of their like their parents, those elderly. So if possible, maybe you can think about whether we can have some small-scale technology to put inside the home, so that more carer can have an easier life, right? Because we always talk about like they have a lot of pleasure, and also and sometimes they it's very physical demanding to take care some elderlies, right? So maybe this is. I would say this is a very good initiative, but we also need to think about whether we can to do it at home, so that more people can benefit from it.
Thank you, Kairos. So once again, let's give a round of applause to Sen and also to Ms. Low. While we have colleagues gonna show some one QR code, we definitely like to hear your feedback, your questions. Furthermore, I think the colleagues gonna show the QR code on screen for some feedback. Meanwhile, I think our next session will be more about the intergenerational contract as well, to keep talking about talent, not just in one generation, but across generations, how they can collaborate, and also how to build the trust among each generations.